Johnny Manziel was back in action for the Browns last night during Cleveland's preseason opener against the Redskins. He completed 7 of 11 passes for 42 yards and also had an impressive 12-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. Skip, did you like what you saw from Manziel last night?
Stephen A., obviously I preface this by saying, either qualifying or disqualifying myself, I remain a big Johnny fan, both as a player and a person. Proud of him, everything that he's been through and come through. But now I'm going to be objective about what I saw or didn't see last night. I loved the new body language, the new demeanor. I did not love the overall performance. I was slightly disappointed and deflated by the overall performance last night. Now, back to the body language, the new composure, the lower RPM, not so frantic, not so frenetic, not forcing the action. When he did score, no money sign. Thank you very much, Johnny. No Johnny football isms on the field. We didn't see the brash, rash Johnny football that we saw all of last preseason when he was trying to say in-your-face veteran National Football League. You knew and I knew it would not work that way for him that quickly, especially with what he was going through off the field. So I appreciated all that. He said and done all the right things. By all accounts, he's actually studying now. He's actually arriving early and staying late now. He's taking all those baby steps toward learning to be a professional football player before he even learns to be a quarterback or maybe even a star quarterback at some point, which I still believe he can be. But now back to the performance. They did say last week, Stephen A., that he missed a couple of practices with a sore arm. It still looks sore to me last night. I don't know what you saw, but I didn't see great arm strength. I saw him checking it down. I saw a lot of dump passes that the receivers or backs might take a few more yards. I didn't see the velocity I used to see in Johnny. So I'm going to chalk it up for one night, first preseason game, to sore arm. But even last year when he played, I didn't see the downfield throws that I often saw at Texas A&M and that I definitely saw. Remember that pro day that he and George Whitfield put on? My God, did they light it up? And remember the last throw of the day was a 55, 60-yard deep ball. He is extremely capable of throwing it way downfield, and I don't see it with the Browns. I don't know if they don't let him do it. I don't know if he wants. I have no idea, but I want to see that Johnny light it up. Obviously, the highlight moment of the whole night of the preseason slate was Johnny broke the pocket when he should have, and he ran and dashed, and you saw the burst, you saw the speed, you saw the quickness for a 12-yard touchdown. And immediately, Johnny Football started trending on Twitter. I get that. That's what everybody still wants to see. But I don't care about that as much as I care about him becoming first the pocket passer I know he can be, because he was a dart thrower at Texas A&M, both short and long. Now, did Mike Evans make a lot of that happen deep? Well, I said on this show, and maybe I'm going to be proven wrong about that, I thought Johnny made Mike more than vice versa. But we'll see. I got to see him stand in the pocket and deliver down the field. And I don't see much of that yet.
Well, all I was looking for was to make sure that he knew the offense, that he was going through his progressions, that he was making the right reads, making the right plays. That's what I was looking for. In terms of the velocity on his throws, we'll see that as time goes on. We all know that he can scramble with the football, and the fact that he sat there and he scampered for a 12-yard touchdown, I think that just reminds people that he does have playmaking ability. If he couples that with the right making decisions, we'll see how that works. But if you look at the Cleveland Browns, Skip, there's no Jordan Cameron. There's no Josh Gordon. I mean, you've got Hartline. You've got Dwayne Bowe. I think it's Dwayne Bowe that came in now. Yeah. I mean, what are we saying here? So when we talk about, this is a team that scored 12 receiving touchdowns last year. 12. That's it. So when I look at it from that perspective, and you say there was, you don't see the long ball being thrown or whatever, maybe he's got nobody to throw it to. Maybe nobody's getting open. You got to remember that Dwayne Bowe was in Kansas City last year, if I remember correctly, the receivers didn't have any touchdowns. None of their receivers had touchdowns.
Last year.
Their tight end scored.
Yeah.
Their tight end scored, but none of their receivers scored a touchdown, which is why Andy Reid was so desperate to get Jeremy Maclin away from Philadelphia to land in Kansas City. So when we look at it from that perspective, let's not just look at Johnny Manziel and what he's not doing. Look at what he's got to work with. Because if Josh Gordon was out there, things would open up significantly wider. And I think that that's what we've got to look at right now. We've got to keep our eyes on Johnny Manziel, but we also got to keep our eyes on him as it pertains to his behavior. On the field, we got to look at what he's working with, because chances are Cleveland hasn't given him much to work with. Yeah.
You know what? That is a very fair point. Again, Johnny didn't start the game. Josh McCown did. And by the way, Josh McCown looked very good, as he usually does. I know he had some rocky moments last year in Tampa, but for the Bears 2 years ago, he was really good. And it looks like he will win this starting job, obviously, in the preseason. But Johnny's last pass of the night wasn't a downfield pass, but it was a nice out route that was dropped, cold dropped. So I don't even know who he's playing with, to tell you the truth. And the worst truth is, we were talking about RG3 and how bad the Redskins are going to be. I think this team's not going to be very good.
Yeah. And they have the Bills defense on Thursday, right here on ESPN. Straight Outta Compton in theaters tonight. Check that out. Ice Cube.
I'm going straight to see it.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Happy birthday to Tim Tebow.
So am I.
Gentlemen, have a fantastic weekend. Yeah, I surprised you with that one. It's his 28th birthday.
I'll watch you Sunday.
Stephen A., have a great weekend. Skip, you too. We'll see you all Monday. You all have a wonderful weekend as well. Thank you so much for being with us. And in other preseason action, the Packers took down the Patriots 22-11. Tom Brady did start, and he played for 2 series. He went 1 of 4 for 10 yards. Then insert Jimmy Garoppolo, who played into the fourth quarter, going 20 of 30 for 159 and an INT, and he was sacked 7 times. Skip, how worried should the Pats be?
Stephen A., before I answer Molly's question, a quick aside. I was shocked last night, and I did watch most of this game. Aaron Rodgers was allowed to attempt 19 passes in preseason game number 1, and last year in the total preseason, he had 33 passing attempts. So I guess the Packers really wanted to lay it on Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and the Patriots in Foxborough last night. That's all I can figure out, but that's just a quick aside. Now, back to Garoppolo. The young man had a rough first half after he replaced Tom Brady. And, Stephen A., I'm going to remind you that last year as a rookie, Jimmy Garoppolo actually threw for the 2nd most yards in the entire preseason. But he did it in the shadows. Nobody noticed because nobody really cared. Last night, they all really, really cared. Not only Patriots Nation, but much of the nation, even though the game wasn't on national TV, waited for the SportsCenter highlights to see, well, how did Garoppolo do as the potential starting quarterback for the first 4 games? He didn't do very well to start with because he melted under that spotlight. He got a little antsy, he got a little nervy, and yet he kept going to the same guy Brady had been going to, Josh Boyce. I have no idea why, who wound up with 11 targets and only 2 catches. But after halftime, when he quit trying to force the ball to Josh Boyce, I must say Garoppolo started looking okay. Not great, but okay. He went 15 for 17 in the second half, and obviously he's doing so without any of the first-unit receivers, and the starting offensive line last night was already beaten up, so you're doing it with second- and third-teamers. So he did okay, but I stand by what I've been saying all along. I don't believe Tom Brady is going to miss any game, but if he does miss 4 games, I believe Jimmy Garoppolo will be lucky to win 1 of those 4 games, which would be Jacksonville in Foxborough. Your thoughts?
I agree with you. I don't think he's ready, but I do think that, Bill Belichick is more qualified than anyone, obviously, to recognize the development that's taken fold. So I certainly don't have a problem with it. I mean, he got sacked. I mean, he was 20 of 30, 159 yards. There were some things that he did that were relatively serviceable. He doesn't seem to be a bum. We know he's got potential. It's just that we're spoiled because we're talking about the success of the Tom Brady, at least for the immediate future, assuming that there's a suspension that takes place. And so when you judge him against one of the greatest ever and arguably the greatest of this generation, then obviously you're going to look at it and you're going to be a bit critical. And that's what I got from it. I mean, I didn't see a lot of it. I saw a few plays that he did. I didn't expect much. But when you look at the New England Patriots and the way they run their offense, can somebody like Garoppolo do whatever it takes to win football games for them? I think it's potentially possible to be serviceable, if not average. And I definitely think that I saw some of that last night.
You know what? I should point out, I just remembered, this was on NFL Network. I was watching it locally, so I guess more people could have seen it. So maybe Garoppolo's aware of that. So, you know, this is a second-round draft pick by Bill Belichick. So, obviously, Belichick, I don't know if I'll go so far as loves this kid, but he really, really likes him if he took him in the second round. And I liked him when I saw the little bits and pieces of him last year. But when you get thrown into that fire, trying to replace that quarterback, if in fact he has to in regular season games, I'm just not sure he can live up to that. Which brings me to my positive takeaways from last night for the Patriots. Jonas Gray suddenly escaped from Bill Belichick's doghouse. You remember he went for 201 at Indy on that Sunday night last year and wound up in the doghouse the week after. But he had that breakaway 55-yard run, and he looked like, you know, a big beastie stallion, man. I mean, he's a big kid who can fly. So that could really bode well. That could serve Jimmy Garoppolo well. And then on the defensive side, again, Aaron Rodgers went after the Patriots, and especially after Super Bowl hero Malcolm Butler early in that game. And I thought Malcolm stood up to it. I thought he made some nice plays. I thought he hung in there. I think he's going to be pretty good as he tries to emerge as their new starting cornerback.
I think he will as well. And to get back to Garoppolo, I also like the fact that he was upset after the game, recognizing that 11 points wasn't enough, saying it repeatedly to reporters and other folks as well, weighing himself and judging himself very, very harshly. Obviously, you got to move on. You can't sit there and languish in the misery of a subpar performance or whatever the case may be. But when you talk about the success of the Tom Brady, you need to be somebody that cares that much. You need to be somebody to be the kind of quarterback where that stuff matters to you, that you're pretty damn close to a perfectionist. And by all accounts, it appears to be that Garoppolo is that way. So I think that they're heading in the right direction. I think he's heading in the right direction. And I don't think it's one of those situations where we need to dissect him ad nauseum to the point where we're trying to project what he will and will not be, because it really doesn't matter. Unless Tom Brady's planning on retiring sometime soon, Garoppolo may have a few games under his belt if the suspension holds up. But outside of that, we're not expecting him to see any kind of quality or significant playing time in the very near future, not as long as Tom Brady is breathing.
So if, in fact, Garoppolo has to play those first 4 games, what's your projection when you go Pittsburgh, then at Buffalo, then Jacksonville, then a week off and at Dallas?
1-3. They'll beat Jacksonville.
That's all I got. I would agree.
I don't know if that's saying too much there, guys, but moving on, the Patriots go to West Virginia to train with the Saints in New Orleans prior to their game. That's August 22nd. And A-Rod, you said 19 attempts there. He was 11 of 19, 117 yards, and was sacked twice. Johnny Manziel was on the field last night putting up points, but how did he really look from the guy's point of view? They'll tell you on the other side.